Hello and welcome to our show, CEOs Get Real. I'm your host, Christopher Marston, and today we have Michael Malkasian at True North Testing. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Glad you made it.
It's all mine.
Just in time, and a fellow Michigander at that.
That's right.
All right, well, cheers, first of all. We got a French wine tonight. Hope you enjoy it.
Cheers to everybody out there.
Not bad. It's about 9 years old, so
Delicious.
it's going to be smooth. Thanks for having some wine with me. I know it isn't your daily drink.
No, but it's very delicious.
Yeah. So it's True North Testing. Give me the story. So you're a cannabis testing lab.
We test cannabis and CBD products for purity and potency. We're located in Chatsworth, not too far from there. And the Bureau of Cannabis Control requires that all cannabis products sold in the state of California be tested for purity, potency, things like heavy metals, 66 pesticides, Aspergillus salmonella, Japanese ochratoxin. For materials, we test for, I think, 6 heavy metals, including mercury and arsenic.
And so the lab space has just come up with the legalization has just triggered this huge avalanche in the need for lab testing, right?
As of July 1st, 2018, all legally sold cannabis products in the state of California have to be tested by a certified analytical cannabis testing lab. And right now there are only 34 active operating labs that are certified in the state, and only about 4 of those are of a decent size, 10,000 square feet approximately. The rest are small, 2,500 square foot size, and they have very, very little throughput. We're at 9,000 square feet.
Wow, okay. There's a saying in business that not sexy is sexy. And of all the things in cannabis, like the lab space is kind of the monkey in the middle, right?
Sure is.
It's like in some ways the least sexiest from the standpoint of like, you go to a bar and you'd be like, I own a testing lab. Like that's not going to pick up anybody, right?
Except everything sold has to go through us multiple times.
Right, and that's sexy.
Right, when I started analyzing the market almost 3 years ago, it's like, do I want to risk money in something that can, retail outlets, cities don't want you to get taxed 15% or greater, just on top of your sales, including state and federal taxes. And the nice thing about cannabis testing labs is we don't fall under the 280E.
Oh yeah, you don't have to deal with the tax.
Exactly.
I got it. That's amazing.
Right off normal business expenses, whereas all of the other verticals in the cannabis industry cannot.
And that's a huge deal for those to know that 280E and the whole tax code around that's a
As you
mess.
should know.
Yeah, no doubt. So what got you into it?
Well, for about 25 years, I owned an ad agency.
Perfectly correlated.
Exactly.
Right.
Grew up in Michigan, as you know, worked for Motown as a recording engineer. Went to Michigan State, got my bachelor's and master's in advertising. Moved to New York.
MSU, you said?
Yeah, Michigan State.
Oh, you're a greenie.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And then moved to California. Worked at a couple ad agencies, then started my own, and our clients were Pioneer Electronics, Toyota, Lexus, Honda, things like that. The LA Kings. Got a little tired of that, was taking a break, and a friend of mine asked me to write a business plan for her. She had built 8 analytical labs for Big Pharma and was going to start a cannabis testing lab, and said, "Will you write a business plan for me?" So I said, "Sure." And after about 10 minutes, she said, of her explaining the market to me, and this was October 30th of 2017, Halloween Eve, she said, "Will you be my partner?" So I just said yes. But after about 6 months, she got very ill. Could no longer be involved. So I decided, I've learned so much from her and from studying the market, I decided to proceed without her. And fortunately, she's not doing too well physically. And then was out looking for space and found a lab that, through our chief science officer, said, "You need to go see this lab. Right now, they're in distress." And we bought.
Was it a testing lab?
We were a testing lab that got themselves in trouble.
For cannabis?
Yes.
Oh, no kidding. So
They
you
were
cleaned
not-
up a dirty asset.
Well, I know I bought the assets of a dirty lab,
Okay, got
of a
it.
lab that
You got
basically, first of all, to own a cannabis business in the state of California, you have to be a resident.
Yeah.
2 of the owners were not residents.
Oh, okay.
And then the 2 primary owners. And this lab had submitted 880 tests to the Bureau of Cannabis Control that showed no pesticides in the samples, which is
Which is not possible, right?
So
Yeah.
the BCC came down, visited him, said pull the samples out of long-term stability, let's test them again, and said,
So were they just not smart enough to know? I mean, like, how do you not know that?
they knew that, and the lab director knew that, and told some of the employees, this is a business decision, just keep doing what you're doing.
No kidding.
And the Bureau of Cannabis, 8 people from the Bureau of Cannabis Control came to pay them a visit. The
Okay.
next day they lost their license. That same day I was in the lab.
Oh, what timing?
A month later, was able to acquire it in order to get the owners off the hook for leases.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Leases for the space.
And how did you find out about this again?
Our chief science officer
Okay.
had been in the lab and found out about it and called me at noon. I live in Venice. Called me at noon on, I think it was a Wednesday. I was in the lab in Chatsworth in 25 minutes. 12:25, I was in the lab. I don't know how I got there so quickly. And left 3 hours later, called one of my partners and said, we have to get this. And we did. A month later, we had the keys. And we've been modifying it and doing R&D testing.
So how did you get it going from a capitalization standpoint?
Well, initially it was friends and business partners and friends and family.
Okay.
And we have about $1.5 million into it. And we acquired the assets for less than 33 cents on the dollar. It was a fully functional lab. They didn't do things like isolate, sample login, and prep, and microbiology, which we are doing.
Yeah.
They didn't treat the analyzers, which they had about 1.2 million in Perkinelmer analyzers in there that were acquired, which are the Cadillac of analyzers for the cannabis industry. And they needed some TLC, which we've done. And we're looking for an additional 1.5 to 2 million to wrap things up, and we'll get there.
9,000 square feet, you said?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty decent sized lab.
Mm-hmm.
So you must be prepping for some massive capacity.
Well, the lab itself, the actual lab space is 7,500 square feet. We could, with the analyzers that we have, operating 5 days a week, 9-hour shift, we can do about 150 samples a day. Then we're automated, so we can then, as that shift's leaving, they can set up another 150 or so that can be tested overnight. And so we can do 300 a day with one shift.
Yeah.
Maximum capacity of that lab's probably around 700 samples a day.
Okay.
And the average, for every 5 R&D tests, you do 1 certificate of analysis test. So the blended cost is about $500 for that.
So tell me about
A lot of money.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Where's the network? How big is the network, and is it geographically defined? It certainly would be.
No, it's not.
Okay.
But right now there are, I believe, 34 operating labs. We are with cannabis labs in the state of California. It's different in every state. Can only pick up samples from a distribution house.
Right.
The building we're in is 95,000 square feet, and there are 5 distribution houses in our building. So we can get about 100 samples a day just from
walking down the hall?
Walking down the hall or walking around the building.
That's great.
And then we're also within 30 minutes driving of 287 distribution houses. And if you ask anybody who's using a testing lab in the state right now, if they're happy with their lab, they won't say yes.
Right.
So everybody we've talked to is like, please.
I've heard a lot of horror stories about labs.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I'm not going to name names, but tell me about the lab business, because there are people that are, that are not being accurate in the testing.
Absolutely.
So what's the game? There's got to be a game in it.
Well, people are trying to game the labs and trying they're shopping labs. When you go to buy alcohol, do you look on the bottle and go, oh, this is 50 proof, I'm going to buy this one? When people go to Bedman or a store, they go, oh, this cannabis has 26% THC. Do you have anything that has higher THC in it? You don't do that. Well, a lot of the manufacturers and distributors will shop labs looking for the lab to tell them that they've got a higher THC level than they actually do. We will not do that. Another thing that that manufacturers do is they'll ask the lab to pass them when they don't pass. We will not do that.
For quality control, yeah.
You will eventually be caught by the BCC, because in order to be a testing lab, you have to be precise, accurate, reliable, and we have to have repeatable results. We have to have a room called long-term stability, where about half of all of the samples that are pulled that are not used in the testing process have to be stored for 45 business days.
You don't destroy them. Yeah,
No.
that's right.
So it's a rolling 45 business days. And then every once in a while, the BCC or somebody's going to come to ISO. You have to be ISO certified.
Sure.
It's ISO 17025 certified.
They'll pull your samples.
They say, hey, pull a couple of these samples. We want to make sure that the results you presented before match these. If you don't, you've got some explaining to do.
Sure. Yeah, because it better not be off the margin of error what those machines are supposed to have anyway.
Exactly.
Right, got
One
it.
of the other things that people don't realize is that lab testing is not just a science. It is also an art. Because each individual, the Bureau of Cannabis Control for the state of California sets the standards that and the numbers you actually have to hit in finding pesticides. And as an example,
You mean a quota?
not a quota, how many parts per billion, how many parts per million.
Okay,
This is an
ppm,
interesting
ppb.
fact. When you're looking for 1 part per million in a sample, you're looking for 1 second in 22 days. 1 part per billion, 1 second in 33 years.
Wow.
Think about that. 1 second in 33 years.
Sure.
It's unbelievable how accurate and precise these analyzers can be.
Oh, wow. They can be that accurate is what you're telling me?
Absolutely. We're looking for parts per billion.
No kidding. So, but the sample size has to be big enough.
Well, yes. About every 50 pounds we pull, and scientists do this in metric, but my brain doesn't think that way yet. But for every 50 pounds we pull our samplers pull about 1.25 ounces. Half of that's used in the testing process. The other half has to be stored for 45 business days.
And then what happens to it then?
After that, you destroy it. It's picked up by a lab disposal company, a lab waste disposal company.
Boy, those guys must be happy people.
Boy, are they expensive. Up until about a month ago, pesticides and residual solvents were actually disposed of in Long Beach, Harbor City, actually. Well, that facility closed, so now it has to be sent via truck. That waste has to be sent via truck to Nebraska. So
Nebraska?
Nebraska. That's the closest.
Gosh, your lab waste goes to Nebraska?
It does now.
Holy carbon emissions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We
That's
just
crazy.
actually had some lab waste picked up last week with $7,000.
Wow. So if when it gets to Nebraska, like what's happening?
I don't know if they burn it or what. I honestly don't know how they
Somebody wants to burn it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
It's burning our money.
That's
But it has to be
insane.
done. And it has to be done safely.
So how did you assess that was a good business to get into?
Well, in looking at, first of all, everybody was running around saying, I've got the best vape pen or the best cartridge.
Right. The sexy stuff, right?
Right. Or if you have a grow, you can, first of all, cannabis the cannabis plant has 2 basic offspring. Marijuana, which has THC in it, about 25, 35%, and then hemp. They're the same thing. Hemp has, in order to be categorized as hemp, you have to have less than 0.3% THC. Those plants are like sponges when they grow outside. And they absorb everything that's in the soil as well as the atmosphere. If somebody in a farm field 2 miles away sprays for pesticides, your plants are going to absorb it. That's why we have to test for all the pesticides, heavy metals, and mold and residual solvents we have to test for. So outside you can get, in California, maybe 7 crops in a year. An inside grow, which is very expensive, can do about 9 crops a year. However, what people also don't realize is right now we're being filmed under fluorescent lamps. In a typical grow facility, you may have a couple hundred lamps. If one lamp goes out, it can kill the whole crop.
Really?
It's unbelievable, the science of this stuff.
Huh.
So the risk there is huge. But with cannabis being sold for, $4,500 a pound right now, it's nothing like that people smoked when I was a kid. You could buy for $30 a pound, but it was crap.
Yeah.
The stuff now, you have a couple of puffs, and you can't get from your couch to the bedroom.
That's
just
true.
really strong. because like I said, everybody's shopping for THC.
Then you got edibles now, which is a whole other story.
Right. Then I'm sorry, I didn't get off of them. You have another one.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, it's oops.
Yep, that's right.
And then you're groggy the next day.
Well, if you don't feel the edibles, that's a different story because those edibles take time to kick in.
We tested some.
If you don't think your edible's working and you didn't wait long enough, you can have some problems.
Or this tastes really
but
good.
I have no idea. Just to be clear, I have no idea about any of it. Yeah.
Oops. We tested some.
So you're testing edibles too?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We tested some edibles.
I didn't say
last
tasting.
Week.
Good.
We tested for R&D some edibles last week that were pineapple cubes. Pineapple chunks.
Sure.
Right, like from Dole.
Yeah, that's right.
They were each one was supposed to have 10 milligrams of THC in them. Everyone had 3.
30.
3.
So
3. No, 3. Not
3.
30. 3.
Oh, 3.
Not enough. So the manufacturer has to go back and adjust that.
Well, dosing in edibles, people don't know. That's a real science. That's hard.
It very is. Yeah,
very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not easy on the analyzers.
Interesting.
Yeah, some of the things are pretty sticky.
Oh, because the material? I got it. Yeah, interesting.
We prefer to test flour and oils.
Okay. And the equipment's expensive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, our analyzers are about $2 million.
$2 million. Wow. Each?
No, for the full set.
Oh, the full set. Okay. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. That's insane.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah. Wow.
However, though, when you're operating at capacity above about 200 samples a day, you're running at about the 85% profit level pre-tax.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's insane too.
Yeah.
Not bad.
It's great for investors. It's great for athletes and actors because it doesn't affect with their endorsements because we're not touching the plant. Hence, we don't fall under the 280E.
Right.
rule.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
So it would be the problem for investors, although these labs there isn't yet like a roll up.
No.
And we're not there yet. We're a lot of individual owners setting up labs, but it's going to get there, right? It's going to eventually get there.
It'll take a while. Our plan is to build 3 to 5 labs, probably 3 in California and 1 or 2 in another state. Brand them because myself and a couple of my partners have multiple years in marketing. Brand them, and then when big money is allowed to come into the state, because as I mentioned, right now you have to be a resident to own a cannabis testing business in the state. Sometime around 2023, big money will allow them to come in. We'll brand them between now and then, and hopefully sell it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the end game.
That's the end game.
Build a saleable business.
Yeah.
So you're not new to this.
No.
So you've been around how many times around the circle of entrepreneurship?
Well, I've owned 3 businesses, but in this and when you really look at it, I've probably worked for a couple hundred businesses over the years.
That's encouraging.
Well, I mean, no, doing their advertising and marketing.
Oh,
my
got
first
it.
day in the job in advertising when I was working on Madison Avenue, my first boss sat me down and before 9:30, she said, I want to give you a piece of advice that I was giving on my first day in advertising. Always do what's right for the client's business. And
that was the last rule?
That was one. And the other was
right.
Learn your client's business more than they do. And I thought, how can you possibly do that? It took me about 3 or 4 years to figure out you could, because a lot of the clients weren't that smart. And
well, management consulting, you have to do that too.
Yeah, exactly.
You really got to go in and understand it all.
Tear it apart and really understand it, and the competition.
They're busy operating it, so they don't have the time. Yeah.
So basically what I did was I took my advertising and marketing experience and analyzed the business, the cannabis industry, from being a manufacturer, distributor, retailer, home delivery, or a distribution house or cultivator.
Okay.
Or a lab. Labs make the most sense because we're the funnel that everything has to go through.
The bottleneck.
That's right. And they're not. And according to the BCC, they think that we're going to need 100 labs in the state. We still haven't gotten above 35.
Okay.
And they're 2 or 3 will fall off. 1 or 2 will come on. So it's been declining. At the height, we were at 61. Now I think we're at 34, and I think I've heard we're about to lose a couple more.
So how does that happen? Is it COVID, or is it something else that's causing that?
It's poor management. It's not planning properly, undercapitalized. It's not having the right scientists, not knowing the right science. not being honest with your results.
Sure. Okay.
Not being, and most of the people who have started cannabis lab testing businesses are scientists.
Yeah.
Most scientists aren't that great in marketing.
Or a business, many of them. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
I meant
Okay.
to say business. You're absolutely correct.
No,
They're not
just-
great at business.
Yeah. Wasn't trying to put words in your mouth, just
No,
because we all know that.
Hey, it's the wine.
It's
the wine's talking.
the truth serum. I love it. So how long ago was the ad agency business then?
I kind of stepped away from that in 2016.
Oh, okay, right before. Now, a year before.
I was
You're
taking
right.
some time off working on actually a top secret project for a major client. And this presented itself, and I went to that client and said, I think I'm going to do something else. And two of them ended up investing in the lab.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So that's great. So tell me about what was the ad agency business like in 2015, 2016?
Not fun.
I remember Ogilvy and Mather days, and there were the days of the ad agency. It had its heyday, but probably the 80s and 90s maybe?
Actually,
70s?
I started on April Fool's Day in 1979. And my boss took me to lunch that day and said, kid, you missed it by about 3 years. 3 martini lunches, all the cliches that you saw in Mad Men.
Yeah.
You missed it. At that point, we still didn't have computers, or you'd have a secretary for about 5 people, and there was a typing pool. And you'd have to write a conference report. By the time you handwrote your conference report, got into the typing pool, got it back, corrected the typos, before you could get it out to the client, you already had another couple of meetings with the client. So we were always behind on that. So at that point though, the clients were pretty smart. Now the younger kids don't want to get into advertising or marketing. They want to do something else that's going to make them more money. So I got out at the right time. It's not as much fun for my friends who are still in it. And with all of the different types of electronic media now, everything's fragmented. And before we had 3 or 4 networks, radio stations, outdoor, mobile transit, like outdoor boards, and
You mean there's too many outlets, too
many outlets.
Okay, so that's what's fragmented is distribution.
It's all fragmented.
It's distribution.
Right.
So it used to be nice and easy. You'd buy time on a channel, and there'd be only a
You can
few,
measure
and you can now it's right. I got it.
But with the electronic media, now you can measure clicks, how long somebody's on something, how long they're viewing something. However, it's just not as fun as it used to be.
So why is that?
Well, the days of $1 million TV commercials are gone. You can
Well, that's because it's fragmented, so the value of,
And everybody thinks that, like people in California, how many people, are writing screenplays, right? Everybody thinks because they've seen an ad that they understand advertising. I mean, I've had clients say, well, I talked to my daughter and my wife last night, and they don't like the casting for the commercials. Like, your daughter and your wife are not part of our target audience.
People here say they talk to their dog.
And believe me, I've heard that one too. Just about everything. So
They get kibbles and bits of advice. That's what they get.
it was time to do something else. I had a slight break, disappeared, and I'm having more fun than I've ever had in my life.
Wow, I love it. So you're having more fun than you've ever had in your life. You're really saying that.
No, I'm getting real
In
serious.
a cannabis testing lab.
Every day I learn something new. It's challenging. The science is fun. I've been a nerd since I was a kid. I made a chemistry set when I was probably 8 years old.
But nerd and ad agency doesn't go together.
No.
So how'd you put those pieces together?
Well, having come from working as a recording engineer in the Detroit area, Motown
that's right.
and other studios.
You'd probably be
being
good
in a
behind a
band,
mixing board. Yeah, I can see that.
Then I evolved to advertising. Got tired of that. Then the nerd part came back, and the marketing part.
I see.
So I'm combining everything since I've been growing up as a kid. Marketing, advertising, communications, people skills, putting teams together. But now I get to do the science part.
Okay. Were you into like erector sets and stuff like that when you were younger? Yeah?
Excuse me.
Radio Shack was
I had erector sets.
Yeah.
Didn't have Legos because they weren't around back then, but absolutely.
Well, that's
Used to
great.
build crystal radios.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yep.
Radio Shack used to have all that
yeah.
stuff, and you go and build something. I remember the days. Until they got into Tandy computers, it never worked.
In Michigan, it was Olson Electronics.
Olson,
Remember
sure,
that?
yeah, Olson. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's an interesting story about Tandy, how that got started. The founder of the Tandy Corporation was in World War II, got injured, and was in the hospital and was bored. So he started to create, he'd make moccasins. Some people bring him some, punches and things, and he would start to make moccasins and belts for himself. And other people in the room say, hey, I want to do the same thing. So he used to make little kits for everybody.
Oh,
That's how the Tandy Corporation got started, was making and selling kits for moccasins and belts and wallets. You can still buy them on Amazon from the Tandy Corporation.
No kidding. So what's Michael's family life like? I didn't ask. So
I'm single, never been married, no kids. As far
No
as I know.
kidding?
Absolutely.
wow.
Yeah.
So what's that like?
It's great.
Now, usually,
I meet people all the time.
usually by the time the people are 40 like you, they've been around the block a few times.
I have a lot of friends, male and female, and
Yeah.
I keep busy. And
So you just love what you do, and you've been kept focused, and
I'll get
you
married
to
when
have
I
fun.
meet somebody who's the right person and who will be basically my best friend.
Okay.
And I just haven't met that person yet. I have not been that fortunate.
Wow.
Then again, I haven't been married and divorced 4 or 5 times like some of my friends.
But you haven't. So you've seen it and don't regret that, of course,
not at
right?
all.
So,
I don't think it's fair to the kids either.
yeah, that's tough. That's tough. So you don't. It's amazing. So what gave you the patience? I mean, you just. I mean, most
Well,
people.
probably because I'm impatient with. When you're dating somebody, there's a thing called the debut. And you can usually, somebody can actually hide who they are or disguise who they are
For a period of
for
time.
about 6 months.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it usually appears when you're at a restaurant and they're tired, and a waiter or a waitress brings them something they don't like, and they scream at them. And that, for me, pretty much kills it, because, you think you're better than this person has just a different job than you, and you're going to
Yeah.
humiliate them in public because they brought you a Diet Coke rather than a Coke. So
So interesting. We used to interview people, and we would, the third interview, we'd take them for drinks, and
Oh, yeah.
and we would take them and see how much they drink, see whether they have any symmetry there, and watch how they treat the service staff.
Yep.
And a certain percentage of them disqualified themselves by the way they treated the staff.
Happened to me when I was in New York interviewing, and it was at lunch. And I had this one boss I ended up working for. I had 3 Gin Gibsons at lunch, and I'm a lightweight when it comes to alcohol. And I went to leave as he offered me the job. He said, "So I said, oh great, we'll see you later." And I started to go, "Just Michael, your office is this way."
That's pretty funny.
Yep.
So have you traveled in your
Oh
time?
yeah, absolutely, all over the world.
All over the world. Something at agency days.
Partially and partially vacations.
Okay. Oh, you got to vacate.
Yeah.
Good for you. So how did you balance being an entrepreneur and getting out
It
there?
wasn't easy. You do it about every 5 years, and you have to force yourself.
Oh, okay. So you did your periodic 5-year deal.
My plan is to build 3 to 5 labs, brand them and sell them, 2023, 2024, and retire in Positano, Italy.
You know I'm going to check in with you in 5 years.
That's fine.
After we do our M&A, after we do your M&A, of course I will. That's great to hear.
If we end up keeping it, I'm still leaving.
Yeah. Good.
Let's hire somebody else to run it.
The golden parachute.
Yep.
Yep.
Jillian. Oh yeah, Jillian's raising her hand. I want to do it.
That's great. Studio audience today,
There you
everybody. Thank you. It's good. So that's good to know. So what were the shining moments of your career?
That's a tough one. There have been quite a few. Working with Lou Reed
Okay.
on a Honda scooter commercial, and during a break, Lou saying, "We got a couple hours. Want to come back to my place in the village in his brownstone?" We sat around and just Lou Reed and I talking and showing me, playing me some music and showing me the awards he'd won. He'd actually won a President's Council Award for a poem he'd written.
Really?
Really brilliant guy, nothing like you would think. Incredibly quiet, shy, and very intelligent. Another moment would be, which is kind of weird, I was thinking about this the other day before I met Lou, I missed my high school senior class trip to the Bahamas to spend 3 days in the studio with just me and David Bowie mixing. I was like 17 or 18.
David Bowie, right? Yeah.
And David Bowie worked with Lou Reed.
In Michigan, right?
Yes, in Michigan. And David Bowie had worked with Lou Reed on Lou's first solo album.
Wow, that had to be
Walk on the
blast.
Wild Side. That was the background singers were Lou Reed, I think Mick Ronson, and David Bowie.
Wow, that's a lot of fun. That's great.
Those are fun.
So what were the hardest moments?
Dealing with tough clients that didn't value your work.
And was that when you were working with others or when you were running your own shop?
Both.
Okay. And how did you do?
Well, it was more difficult when you had your own shop. Your clients were there because of you,
Right.
and that was a little bit easier. But then if somebody new came in, then he would try to test you by testing, asking questions, and trying to do things they shouldn't do. One of the most difficult parts is when you're working with junior people and you have to say to them, look, if you do what you want to do, this is going to happen. I promise you. It's not because I'm smarter than you. It's because I've seen it or I've done it. So they do it. Now they're in trouble.
Yeah, they can't help themselves but to be themselves, right?
They blame you, and you're like, well, I told you not to do that. So eventually you get tired of that and you say, look, I've told you, I made it clear.
Didn't you put it in writing?
Oh, yes, but you don't want to ruin somebody's career unless you absolutely
I got it, okay.
actually have to. But eventually enough's enough.
Fascinating times.
There's a lot
So when
of
you say junior people, you mean junior in the organization you were serving?
Correct.
So what they would put somebody, you'd come in at a higher level and they'd stick someone younger on the account?
Well, usually they would promote from within. And
I get it.
they would promote,
Oh, so
promote the ad manager to marketing director, marketing manager.
Oh, I see.
Now you have a new ad manager who's somebody who was working as a salesperson in the South. Now they're in charge of marketing and they're in charge of advertising.
Got it.
And the only advertising they know is maybe they took a class in college or they watched television or picked up a magazine.
So what you're telling me is that this concept of people valuing, that's a knowledge industry, right? I mean, you're selling knowledge, you're creative, you're magic.
That's right.
What you're telling me is that hasn't changed really in decades.
No, it's gotten worse.
Is it even in terms of people valuing knowledge?
That and the quality. There's a saying that clients get the advertising they deserve. And if you look at the stuff that was really great growing up were things that you can remember.
With the Budweiser commercials?
Just
With the frogs?
Yeah, things that are very memorable, and
What are the other ones? Where's the beef?
Where's the beef? That was done by Seidelman out of Chicago with a little old lady.
How about the ragu? It's in the sauce.
Yep,
if you remember that. That's aging me quite a bit.
Paul Newman's. A lot of stuff that was really, really good. Then you can't even remember half the stuff now. Or after the commercial's over, you don't even know who it was for, what product.
Diamonds are forever.
There you go.
Big one.
Do you know prior to that, diamonds were basically used as an industrial product?
Yep.
So
they were abundant.
Right,
I mean, they're still abundant.
With this stuff. So they gave them to actors and actresses who would wear them, primarily actresses, to the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, diamonds went from an industrial grade product on the head of a cutting wheel or a drill bit to being valued at twice your salary, twice your monthly salary.
So
2 months' salary is what they expected now to spend on a diamond.
It's like the old influencer economy, right?
Exactly.
It's just a different game now.
Right, just rebranded it.
Yeah.
Some of the Marlboro commercials. The Marlboro.
Oh, sure, the Marlboro.
Marlboro started out as a cigarette for women. Then they switched it to men.
No kidding.
Marlboro men. Yep.
Wow.
Oh yeah. When they introduced the Mustang, at that time they had ABC, NBC, and CBS, and they did what's called road blocking. Sunday night on the Ed Sullivan Show, the night they introduced the Mustang, no matter what channel you turned to, it was the same commercial was on.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's called road blocking. It's hard to do that anymore because people are so fragmented. A lot of people, more often than not, people when they're watching television, if they're not watching something on their laptop, they're also texting or playing with their iPad, and hell, they do that when they're driving.
So isn't the goal now are the budgets just smaller because it's so fragmented,
Yes.
and the goal is to have to be clever and shorter, basically?
Do more for less.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that advertising can only do one of three things: generate awareness, affect an image, or promote trial. Generate awareness. You didn't know about us. Here's who we are. Affect an image. You thought we used to suck. We don't suck anymore. Promote trial. If you try this, and we'll give you 10 cents off or $1 off or something.
Yeah.
And you only want to try to do one or two of those things in any given piece of communication. One is
For sure. No doubt.
something,
Yeah.
but then I've had clients say,
So like affect an image would be like the Wells Fargo stuff where they're trying to fix their image from screwing people.
exactly.
Got it.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So now I apply all of those techniques in marketing and customer service and to marketing the lab and labs.
Right. True North Labs, right?
True North testing.
True North testing.
Yes.
Yeah. So how long ago? 3 years, right? You've been at this?
I've been doing this. Yes, it'll be 3 years, October 30th of this year.
So what is the capacity of one lab from a revenue standpoint, if it's a full capacity?
Well, there are four, like I said, there are 4 labs of size in the state. Meaning 8,000 square feet to about 12,000 square.
Is that considered an optimal size for
From my calculations, yes.
Okay.
In the numbers I've run, we can easily do gross pre-tax 75 to 100 million a year from a lab that cost you 5 or 6 million to get into.
That's pretty good.
It's very
If you got 3 of them, then
You have 5 of them, you sell them for at least
that's
10
what I mean.
times EBITDA.
Yeah,
I can move to Positano.
right.
You can come visit.
Right. You'd make a good public company CEO. No, just kidding.
Not
Just
a
kidding.
chance.
Exactly.
We will not go public.
I know. We had that conversation before. That's good. Well, good. Let's pivot a little bit if we could.
Sure.
So, I'm going to get real with you in a minute, but before I do, I was going to say, what do you think about Exemplar?
I think Exemplar is a great company. I love your concept and what you're doing, and I look forward to talking to you about it in the next few days and after.
Amazing.
So you can help us.
Well, looking forward to that too. We're doing so much in cannabis. It's such a bustling business, and it's dynamic. Because like you said, we got half the people that are in it now are they were either drug dealers before because it got legal, and the people that know the business it was drugs.
That's right.
Right? It was a black market, and then where you got people coming into it who don't know the business, and then they've got those operational challenges of just not understanding it well enough.
There's a couple of fun facts. California is the largest market in the world for growing cannabis, the 3rd largest market for consumption, and the cannabis that's being tested in the state, people estimate we're only testing 5 to 7% of that which is grown. So the black market is still significant. However, people are now realizing that when they heat up something to smoke to 340 degrees is what it does when you light a cigarette or a joint or smoke a vape, which I wouldn't do for a lot of reasons.
We might want to unpack that.
But okay, well,
in a second, but go ahead, yeah.
So you can always edit that out. So one of the issues is you are smoking things that some of them can turn to sodium cyanide in small doses. Or you'd be smoking pesticides, as I mentioned earlier, mercury,
yeah, sure,
or arsenic. I don't think it's a good idea. And almost anything grown illegally is tainted. As a matter of fact.
So where does the tainting come from? It's not like those guys are like, let's pour some cyanide on this stuff, Let's say
no.
little mercury, add a little mercury, and
let's go back
some ant killer,
Let's go back 30 years ago. And somebody you knew from high school decides, I don't want to go to college. I want to grow pot up in Humboldt.
Sure.
You hung around.
Sounds like a pure place.
You can't hang around your plants all day long, but bugs are eating them. So you put pesticides and weed killer on there.
Okay, so it's back to that. Okay.
Eventually, it's in the air, it's on the plant, or it's in the soil. It's the same issue with wines.
All of it leads back to Monsanto, apparently.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the vapes? So what's your opinion on the vapes? We had that vape. The vape crisis hit a lot of our clients because of that.
They still don't know what caused that. To be honest,
they don't.
They're not definitive.
But I thought it had to do with the vitamin E stuff.
So did a lot of people. The scientists aren't 100% sure that's what it is. All of it. Some of it can be buying vape cartridges from Mexico and China that contain large amounts of lead in the metal, which when you heat that, you get to ingest that. Pesticides, other things in there, and
but we haven't had another crisis since that crisis cropped up. So
the market's crashed.
Oh, of course, it crashed. Yeah,
and I think they made them pull vitamin E acetate from.
Yes, they did.
As a
what do they call that?
Not a buffer, an additive,
filler. Yeah, it was filler.
But again, some people thought it was fentanyl.
Really?
Yeah, it was fentanyl, but nobody knows for sure yet.
Wow, that's crazy town. So what is this? So what's going? There's so much going on in the world, Mike. We're going to get real. You ready to get real?
Sure.
Normally I toast, but we've already been drinking the whole time. We're going to keep it up.
Would you like some more?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I appreciate it. Thanks. You're a good host.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're a good hostess.
So thank you. That's great. Oh, that was awesome.
Very delicious
That's great.
wine. Thanks.
Thanks.
So
yeah.
go ahead,
Yeah.
ask me anything.
No, well, there's so much.
You already have.
We're in a special time. Yeah, wait till tomorrow.
Great.
We're in a special time in the world.
Oh,
I think we're, with everything going on, and we're incredibly polarized as a society. Like, what are the things that are on your mind about, when you're thinking on your own about what's happening? Maybe we can unpack them a little bit.
I think 2020 is going to be the year to forget. I thought it was bad when President Kennedy got shot. I mean,
Yeah.
but this is insane. I don't think our president's helping.
So what could he do? I mean,
Well, one, be honest,
yeah.
and two, do what he was hired to do.
Did you just
protect
ask
the
a politician to be honest? I'm just
Exactly.
wondering. Because like any of them, it wouldn't matter as this president or another one. I'm
people.
just
I know, but
wondering.
this one lies to you and tell you he's lying.
Well, isn't that authenticity, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got
And
it.
he's being honest.
Right.
He's taking a playbook from what the Russians do, which is tell them what you're doing because they're
Right.
not going to believe it and just do it. So then you can say, well, I told you I was going to do it.
And then when you do it, it's so outrageous that the media focuses on it. You get free media attention for it.
Exactly.
But they fall for it every
It's
time.
like, come on.
Every
Exactly.
time. It's great.
I just can't wait for 2020 to be over.
The CNN, Continuous Nonsense Network or something.
God.
Yeah.
Particularly with COVID.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
every day you learn something new. I have friends who are doctors. A couple of them invested in the lab, and they say every day they're learning something new from this. Something they learned a couple days ago, and people aren't talking about it yet, is that people who have survived COVID are experiencing the outer layers of red blood cells being swollen, expanding, and causing
What, you mean like, it's not like somebody looked in the mirror and be like, dude, my blood cells are expanding.
inflammation. No, they're doing it under microscopes. Inflammation. People are having strokes. They're having blood clots in places you normally wouldn't, like an elbow. These are people who aren't recovering as quickly as people thought. What they're learning is the recovery rate, the recovery time can be months, maybe years, maybe never. It depends on, there's so many different symptoms. They just don't have an answer yet.
Yeah, so symptom clusters, and they're all different, and now they've got that. I mean, so things, isn't it whack-a-mole though? I mean, from a policy standpoint, you're really learning so much so fast that
What not to do.
that trying to figure out a strategy is really difficult. Trying to figure out a unified strategy that works everywhere is almost impossible.
Sending kids back to elementary kids and high school kids and kids in college back to school. First of all, number one, the first group that was protected were the children. So yeah, if kids haven't gotten it, are getting it. Well, then you protected them first. You pulled them out of school last March, right? You
Yep.
shut the schools down. Then, with some states still on the rise, you're sending them back to school without any protocols. Then you see pictures with kids in college and in high school clustering in groups without masks. Then they're wondering why they're going home and they're giving it to the
Well,
elderly.
the colleges are having parties.
Yeah, on
Like
top of
it's
that.
like their brains fell out of their head. It just
Right.
splat right on the ground. Like whoops, I forgot.
Well, look at what happened after Memorial Day 3 weeks later.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We
It's
have
like
Labor
that.
Day coming up. Great.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they have French kissing classes or something.
And Trump, it's going to miraculously disappear. Yeah.
We're back to that again.
I know, I'm
love
sorry.
it. We're back to that. It's great.
I just don't understand how we got to where it's acceptable to have 180, it's over 6 million cases in the U.S. And over 185,000 deaths. And he's not talking about it. He's acting like people like the Portland's on fire and burning down, which isn't true.
Well, he's talking about that.
And ignoring the.
But it's not true.
It's a couple of blocks.
Is that less worthy of news? I'm just wondering.
They're coming in to support Trump.
Okay.
Supposedly.
Oh, supposedly. Well, no, that's a whole other thing, right? So, what do you think about that stuff?
I don't know what's real or what is or isn't anymore. I think you have to use common sense. Here, let me give an example.
Isn't that true? Nobody knows. Nobody seems to know what's real or what isn't anymore. So what's behind that?
Right now that's saying if you elect me, I'll stop all this lawlessness and all this stuff. This stuff's happening under your watch.
Is that how you see it?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Well, he's literally saying if you elect Biden, it's gonna get worse. Well, under Biden, in the 47 years he's been a public servant, it's never been like this. He's running around telling everybody
if you don't elect me, it's going to get worse. It got worse under you. And when he first started, and when he campaigned in 2000, up to the election in 2016, he was talking about protecting the cities. Now he's talking about protecting the suburbs. Like all of a sudden, your suburbs are going to be attacked.
No. It's fascinating, but to you, it's like an episode of Godfather, like where he could just put his hand on a city and it's like healed. Is that how it works?
Only I can fix this.
You know, if
you made it,
right. You can't.
That's why you can fix it.
You can't put your hand on the like mayor of Portland and make that better, right? Like I'm just wondering.
Yes, you can. And maybe he's the only guy who can fix it because he's the guy who made it happen.
Oh, the wheeler and dealer. What's his name? Was that it? Apparently, the protester is in his building, in his apartment building.
Really?
Yes,
That's
they were in his apartment building, and then he apologized and said, "I'm going to move. I feel bad for you," and then blamed the president, of course. Right, it's crazy town, right?
Yeah.
So, but do you feel like the issues about why rioting and looting and Black Lives Matter, is that conflated? Because I think a lot of people are confused. Like, the politicians have failed to make a distinction between what's this uprising is all about, and I think obviously it serves them, but they failed to distinguish.
Well, I think you have a couple things going on. When you have these looters that come in and they're looting, they're causing destruction. When they're caught, they found out they're not even from that area. They're not even from the state. They're being brought in.
Well, yeah, I heard they're funded, right? I heard they're funded, yeah.
I have a friend who, when they were riding in Long Beach, she was riding her bike and called me and said, "You're not going to believe this. I got off my bike, I'm watching looting going on, and I'm seeing groups of people putting a dozen or so bricks in front of every store, so when the gangs come by, they can then pick up the bricks and throw them through the windows and loot." And it's being set
like
up.
getting ready for it.
Yeah.
So
they're doing.
Okay. So we agree that's illegal.
Yeah, pretty much.
Not that I need to ask you. I'm an attorney, but I'm just saying. Okay.
I think it's illegal.
So, but you know,
and the wrong thing to do.
In a law context, if you fund illegal activity, the funder is also responsible. If you put a hit job on your ex-wife, you're kind of responsible for murder.
If you get caught, even if she doesn't, if the
that's right. Even if
hitman doesn't succeed,
that's correct.
It happens all the time.
We're
from the Detroit area.
Yeah,
come on,
that's true. You got it.
Yeah.
What a war zone. Talk about. You could drive 45 minutes and not get to the end of Detroit, and it'd be an abandoned building.
I've been shot at twice when I worked in Detroit.
That's good. No, but you're good at. That's why you know how to stick and move, right?
Most people can't hit anything. Your best day on the range, you can't even get close to that. I mean, basically, if you're learning how to shoot be a professional, they will tell you that your worst day on the range your best day in a situation is going to be kind of like not even close to your worst day on a range.
Okay.
So you want somebody shooting at you, run. Bricks are not going to hit you.
Bricks are much easier. Yeah. Bricks are much easier. So you're saying you saw bricks being lined up? Is that what you're doing? She did. Okay.
So they're just prepping for the group to come in. Then she stood in one of the doors and blocked them and said, "I'm not moving." And they just went to the next point, the next one down, picked them up and threw them through, and then ran in.
So people know this is happening, right? And if the local police isn't stopping it, aren't they endorsing it?
No. What's happening in Long Beach and other cities is the local police were one step behind. They had spotters and they had people with communication listening to what the police were doing, so they were always one step ahead. Noticed if you watched some of the news at the time, you'd see people going in and start to loot a building in Long Beach. Long Beach was a really good example of this because they had helicopters who were up, the newscopters, and people on the street. It's all of a sudden you see people coming running out with stuff. Then you see them scatter like cockroaches when you turn the light out.
Right.
Because then the cops show up. Then they go to the next place. So the cops were always one step behind of these guys.
So you're saying now, recently?
No, this was this summer.
In summer?
Yeah, but it's kind of quieted down here.
No,
I don't know what's going on in Portland.
California's quieted down.
Yeah.
I mean, Portland's a mess. You turn on the tube, it's a mess still.
Well, what I heard was...
But it's amazing.
It's only a couple of blocks. It is not the whole city of Portland. I have friends that live up there. They said, we live here. We're not seeing this. Yeah, there are a couple of blocks where it's a problem. You just stay away from there.
Yeah, I guess they're lucky they're not on that couple of blocks.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the danger of it is, right, is that at some point they're hitting their own constituents because whoever it is that's responsible for failing to take action against that, those are minority businesses and people that really need that to survive and feed their families. I think that's the biggest travesty here, right? Is that lawlessness being permitted to happen is has a lot of unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, how many millions of people do we have out of work right now? 30
Right.
million?
Right.
How many of them are never going to be working again?
Well, and sometimes that, in cases like this, after a pandemic, right, they're worn out, they're distressed. It doesn't take but a few bricks through the window and a little looting to put the last bullet in their chest, right?
When I drive home from the lab in Chatsworth to where I live in Venice, I usually drive, when I go home, I go through Topanga, and I drive down Santa Monica Boulevard, Main Street in Santa Monica, and Abbot Kinney. Yesterday, I noticed a huge increase in places where there were shops selling clothes and things, and restaurants that are now closed, and the spaces for rent.
Oh, no doubt. There's a massive amount. It might be half. It might end up being half.
It probably will be for restaurants.
Yeah, for restaurants. I mean, the margins are already so thin as a business at full capacity. You had a very little margin of error.
5% maybe.
Forget about 50. What are they going to go to their landlord and say, well, I can only have 50% capacity, so charge me 50% rent.
Right.
And then they're going to go to what? Their big Fannie Mae mortgage, the mortgage company, and say, cut my mortgage payment to 50%.
And look at the stimulus package that we got. And nothing since.
Nothing. Is that what you feel? If you look at the national debt, you wouldn't say that.
Of course not.
You would actually say that it makes nothing sense to pay that much money.
First of all, the Fed, if you didn't know anything about how the economy works, the Fed's a privately owned corporation or business. It is not, it's the Federal Reserve, even though it's owned by a few billionaires, right? And we get to pay them for the money they print plus interest on them.
Those are good printers.
And pay that money back. They have a great deal going.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, somebody's kids are going to be paying for that for a long time.
No doubt.
It's a mess.
No doubt. It's a real mess.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have kids to worry about, which is good.
As far as I know.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer, my friend. What else is on your mind these days?
Well, getting the lab, moving the lab forward.
Yeah.
And we're looking in locations for the next lab right now, for lab number 2 and 3. Looking at homes in your neighborhood.
Yes.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, you could have been a neighbor or could be a neighbor.
I looked at the home next door last
That's
week.
great.
Believe it or not.
That's
I
amazing.
thought that was so strange. And then trying to have a little bit of free time because last few years I've worked probably 18 hours a day, 16 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And
No wonder you're single.
that's one of the reasons. I mean, every time I meet somebody, I just have to say, look, here's what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of years.
Yeah,
you want to
so
be friends and have fun? Yes.
You want a boyfriend you'll never see? I'm your guy.
Right.
That's right.
You want
That's
to have
what you
fun?
said.
But then everything
That's
got shut down with COVID, so it didn't matter. Everybody's FaceTiming everybody.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a spit water here.
It's a year to forget. Most people want to put it behind them.
I certainly do.
Yeah. Well, what are your kibbles and bits of advice? I'm talking about that for people that are in business. What were the big things that might have gotten you over humps or
Depends
bits
on
of
the
wisdom?
business. First of all,
Okay.
watch your cash flow.
Okay.
You're only as good as the people that you hire. Treat them well, and they will be loyal. Pay attention to your people.
When you
Pray. Well, I mean, pay attention to what they're doing and not doing. Give them praise when it's deserved, and let them know when they're not doing something right. Give them an opportunity to correct it. Hiring is the most important thing somebody can do. It's like dating. It's almost like getting married to somebody you hardly know. So I think those are the key things. And just pay attention, but also really pay attention to your customers. Make them feel like they're the only customer. I think that when you call someplace and you'll get a recording. I'm sorry, but all of our people are helping other customers right now. Well, I'm a customer. I tell clients all the time, please change that. Say, I'm sorry, we can't take your call at the moment. Leave a message, we'll call you back, or you can hold and we'll get to you in the next number of minutes. But to literally say we're helping somebody else, they're more important than you are, you never do that. Every customer is important. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's great. Those are great bits of advice.
I hope. It
Yeah.
worked for me.
So what did you do when you had duds for people?
Oh, boy.
People's the hardest part of the business, right?
Luckily, I've only had a couple. And I have pretty decent hearing. I think of it from being a recording engineer. And
Yeah, you got
I
to,
will
right?
I remember there was this one person who would get a group of people together. You think they pretend like they're talking about business. And I could be about 30, 40 feet away and I could hear everything they're saying. As I get closer, this one troublemaker or bad apple would change. Well, and then we need to work on, and then I keep going and about another 20 feet on the other side, get right back to what we're talking about. Finally, I had to say, "Look, I can hear everything you say, wherever you say it. Let's come into my office right now." And gave her a couple months and wrote her up and finally had to let her go.
Yeah.
But I gave her the opportunity to change. She couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it.
But
So was there a lesson there when you identify people? A lot of people give people too many chances.
Yes, and they can hurt you.
It's like one rotten apple can ruin the bunch if you keep them around too much.
Well, one of the problems when you do reference, you seek out references on somebody is you've got to ask them the question, would you hire this person again? They can't say yes or no anymore. They don't answer you. Then you know what the answer is.
Yeah.
That's a key question.
Yeah, sure is. Because nowadays you can get
People can get sued if they say the wrong thing.
They
right?
say
So
people
you
can
gotta
sue
be able
for
to
the-
read
between the lines and ask that one.
question where you can read a hesitation.
would you hire this person again if you had the opportunity?
Yeah.
And right in the past, they would say no. In the last 5 to 10 years, they just don't answer. Then you've got your answer.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
That alone could save people a lot of headaches, you know.
I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Worked
good.
for me.
Well, Jack Welch said, hire hire slow, fire fast.
Yes.
And most people do it the opposite way, right?
And
so-
he was doing great. He had a good 30-year run with GE.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody put a book out on him, and I think he.
What do they do? A hit job on a book or something?
Oh yeah, he turns out he wasn't the guy he claimed to be, or the guy he presented himself, which is very common.
Well, I mean, you're not gonna write a book about your warts,
And well, also most people don't rise to that
Hey,
level.
look at these warts.
Right, exactly. Well, most people don't rise to that level without stepping on a few people.
Yeah, that's true. Well, don't you have to be tough?
Yeah, you can be tough, but you can also be fair and honest and consistent. When I had my ad agency, we never had to go out and pitch for business. People just knew that we were, because of my first day in advertising, do us right for the client's business. And when we came to them with something, it wasn't an idea. It wasn't because we were going to make the most money on it. There's some instances where we tell them, we're going to lose money on this, but we think it's the right thing for you to do. And when you get that reputation, I still get people calling me, wanting me to do their marketing. Hey, I'm in the middle of this. Oh, tell me what you're doing. Can I come by and check it out? Then a couple of them put money in.
Right.
Can I be a part of this? Sure.
So what was a part of that formula that made that work for you?
Well, I think going back to what I learned my very first day. Number one is my dad always taught me, always learn to read well, write well, and speak well. I'm not sure about the speaking well tonight. and always do what you say you're going to do.
You dressed well for the occasion, I see, too. You were
It's black. And the other thing he said is always be honest and always do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And I think I was maybe 7 when he told me that, and I was like, what? And believe me, I think that's the best advice you can give somebody.
Yeah.
As
Well,
a kid.
if you ask somebody, do you have integrity? Everybody will say yes, right?
The question is, will somebody else say that about them?
Well, of course, that's true. And so I used to say the values are only you're only as good in values as what other people would say about you.
Exactly.
Right? Because you can't say you're respectful. Respectful by definition is whether anybody respects you. But the interesting thing about integrity is if it's defined as, most people, if I ask what is integrity, they'd say, well, it means you're honest, you don't lie. And then if you extrapolate on that to, well, what does that mean? And you could eventually,
It's multidimensional.
you could all eventually get to that it means saying what you'll do and simply doing what you say.
Exactly.
And if you hold people to that standard, you'll find that so many people fail it.
That's right. We're
And yet-
experiencing that right now in politics.
And yet it's so
Sorry to go back there.
Yet it's so simple. No, you didn't say a name. We're good.
Right.
That's good. They're all, you say politics, you're probably talking about everyone. I mean,
Just about
people
everybody.
that pretty much lost faith in the swamp.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
They say what they have to say and do what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Unfortunately.
So, well, don't we need a little more integrity in the world then?
Absolutely.
Amen to that. Well, cheers to that. How about
Cheers.
that?
Cheers.
I love it.
Cheers to integrity in the
Cheers
world.
to integrity. Yeah. Boy, we really found something to toast to, which is great.
Really.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It was fun.
exactly. Came in. So everybody, we're here for CEOs Get Real. I'm your host, Christopher Marston. Michael Malkasian.
True North Testing.
True North Testing. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you again. I'm for 5 years.
Yeah. Or tomorrow night.
Big exit. No, tomorrow night and the 5-year
5
party.
years. Yep. Great.
All right.
Looking forward to it.
You got it, buddy.
Thanks.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you.